Ever get that feeling like you're constantly like performing online? You
Yeah.
know, polishing your profile, chasing likes, maybe even dreaming of that blue check mark on Twitter.
Yeah.
Today's deep dive explores how this quest for online validation is actually changing who we are at like a really fundamental level.
Hmm.
And we've got this fascinating academic article that uses the Twitter verification check mark as a way to understand these bigger shifts in how we see ourselves in like the digital age.
It is interesting, isn't it? We often think about social media as just like a fun way to connect,
Right.
but this article really argues that it's reshaping our sense of self, like at the core.
Okay, so how does like a little check mark tie into all of this?
Well, the article digs into how ideas about selfhood have always been influenced by like the economic systems we live in.
Right.
Think about it. We've always been told who we should be to succeed.
Yeah.
In the past, it was about like fitting into roles like the ideal consumer, always buying the newest thing,
Hmm.
or the perfect employee,
Hmm.
always striving for that promotion.
Okay, so now it's about becoming an influencer or building a personal brand online.
Exactly. That constant pressure to like present ourselves in a certain way, to hustle and optimize our online persona,
Yeah.
it's all connected to the rise of the reputation economy.
The reputation economy. Tell me more about that.
So basically, it's this idea that our online reputation likes followers. And yes, even those blue check marks has become like a form of currency.
Right.
It can open doors to opportunities, brand deals, even jobs in the gig economy.
So it's not just about vanity anymore.
Not at all. It's about building social capital that can translate into real-world benefits.
Right.
And Twitter, with its verification system, has become like a key player in this whole game.
But how does the check mark actually work? It always felt kind of mysterious to me. Like this secret society with no clear rules for entry.
You've hit the nail on the head. The article calls the checkmark an effective lure. The fact that it's so difficult to get with no transparent criteria
Right.
actually makes it more desirable. We're wired to crave things that are exclusive and hard to obtain.
It's like that feeling of wanting something you can't have, right? It
Yeah.
makes you obsess over it even more.
Exactly. And all that time and energy we spend trying to decipher the algorithm to figure out how to get verified.
Yeah.
It's all generating data for Twitter.
So we're actually playing into their hands by chasing after this like symbol of status.
In a way, yes. And it's not just about the checkmark itself. It's about the mindset it creates.
Okay.
This constant self-optimization, the pressure to present ourselves in a way that's deemed worthy of verification.
Right.
It all contributes to the rise of what the article calls the anticipatory speculative self.
Okay, now that sounds deep.
Mm.
What exactly does that mean?
It means we're no longer just presenting ourselves online.
Okay.
We're constantly trying to anticipate who we should be based on what the algorithms are telling us.
Oh, wow.
Think about those personalized recommendations you see online.
Mm-hmm.
They're based on your past behavior, but they're also shaping your future choices.
Yeah. It's like those algorithms are trying to predict who we are even before we know ourselves.
That's a great way to put it. And Twitter is playing a particularly interesting role in this
Dang.
because they're moving beyond just being a microblogging platform.
Right. They've been pushing this digits thing, haven't they?
Yeah,
Something about logging in with your phone number.
that's the one. Now, on the surface, it seems super convenient, right?
Yeah.
No more remembering a million different passwords. But this is where it gets a little unsettling.
Okay. I'm officially intrigued. Tell me more about this digit situation and why it matters.
Well, by using your phone number as your main login, Twitter is essentially linking your online identity to your real-world identity
Okay.
in a way that's never been done before. And this is where the worlds of tech and finance start to converge in a pretty big way.
Hold on. Tech and finance. How are those connected to my phone number and Twitter?
Think about it. Your phone number is increasingly becoming your primary identifier for everything.
Okay.
From banking to shopping to government services.
Mm-hmm. You mean like mobile banking and things like that?
Exactly. And by connecting your online activity with your phone number, Twitter is positioning itself to become a major player in this rapidly growing world of mobile payments.
So it's not just about selling ads anymore. They want a piece of the financial pie.
Precisely. And it's not just Twitter. We're seeing this convergence happening across the board. Big tech companies are getting into financial services, and traditional banks are partnering with telecom companies.
Wow.
It's all about controlling the flow of data and money in the digital age.
Whoa. Okay. That's a lot to process. So we've gone from chasing a little blue check mark to potentially handing over control of our financial lives. Feels like we've jumped down the rabbit hole here.
We have, haven't we? And we're just getting started. Next, we'll delve deeper into this concept of the anticipatory speculative self
Okay.
and what it means for our freedom and autonomy in a world increasingly driven by
It's
algorithms.
already blowing my mind. I can't wait to dive deeper. Okay,
Yeah.
so we've been talking about this idea of an anticipatory speculative self. Basically how algorithms are trying to predict who we'll be, and even influencing our choices.
hmm
But how does this actually play out in real life? Is it really that big of a deal?
It might sound like science fiction, but it's already happening all around us.
Okay.
Think about something as basic as applying for a job.
Oh, yeah. Job hunting. It feels
Yeah.
like that whole process has become so automated these days.
Exactly. A lot of companies now use algorithms to scan resumes and pick out potential candidates.
Oh, wow.
So instead of a human looking at your qualifications and experience, it's a computer program making the first cut.
So instead of a hiring manager, it's an algorithm deciding whether I even get a chance to interview.
Unfortunately, that's the case in many situations. And here's the catch.
Okay.
Those algorithms are often trained on data from past hires,
Right.
meaning they're looking for patterns that match what they consider a successful candidate.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't fit that predetermined mold, you might get automatically rejected, even if you're perfectly qualified.
That's kind of terrifying. It's like being judged by your data's shadow, not your actual skills or potential.
That's a great way to put it. And it gets even more unsettling.
Oh, no.
This article suggests that algorithms can create self-fulfilling prophecies.
Hold on. Self-fulfilling prophecies. How does that work with an algorithm?
Let's say an algorithm predicts, based on certain data points, that you're at high risk of being unemployed in the future.
Okay.
It might start feeding you ads for unemployment services or job training programs,
Right.
even if you're currently employed and doing well.
So it's like the algorithm is already writing you off, even if its prediction is wrong.
Exactly. And that constant messaging can actually impact your mindset. You might start to internalize that label, lose confidence in your career prospects,
Yeah.
and even make decisions that unintentionally make that prediction come true.
Wow. It's like the algorithm is shaping your reality, even if it's based on faulty data.
Yeah,
It feels like we're losing control over our own narratives.
that's a key point. And this isn't just happening in the job market. Think about predictive policing, where algorithms are used to identify neighborhoods that are deemed high risk for crime.
Well, that sounds like a good thing, right? Wouldn't that help allocate resources more effectively?
It's a complex issue. In theory, predictive policing could make communities safer. But in practice, these algorithms often reinforce existing biases and inequalities. They're trained on data from past arrests,
Right.
which tend to be concentrated in certain neighborhoods, often those with a history of poverty or over-policing.
So it's like a vicious cycle. The algorithm predicts more crime in a certain area, leading to increased police presence, which can result in more arrests, feeding back into the algorithm and justifying the original prediction.
Exactly. And this is just one example. We're seeing similar patterns with algorithms used in everything from credit scoring to healthcare.
Wow.
These systems are shaping our lives in profound ways, often without us even realizing it.
Okay, this is all pretty bleak. Is there any way to fight back against this? Or are we just doomed to become puppets of these algorithms?
I wouldn't say we're doomed, but it definitely requires us to be proactive and informed.
Okay.
The article emphasizes the importance of critical awareness,
Right.
understanding how these algorithms work, what data they're based on, and what biases they might be perpetuating.
So knowledge is power.
Absolutely. The more we understand these systems, the better equipped we are to challenge them and demand more transparency and accountability from the companies that create and use them.
But how do we challenge something as complex and powerful as an algorithm? It feels like a David and Goliath situation.
It's definitely a challenge, but not an insurmountable one. Collective action is key here.
Right.
We need to organize, raise awareness, and put pressure on these companies to change their practices.
Like some kind of digital rights movement for the age of algorithm.
Exactly. We need to demand more transparency about how these algorithms are being used, what data they're based on, and how they're impacting our lives. We need to push for regulations that protect our privacy and prevent these algorithms from being used in discriminatory ways.
It's kind of empowering to think that we're not powerless in this situation. We can make our voices heard and push for change.
Absolutely. And it's not just about fighting back.
Okay.
It's also about creating alternatives.
Oh.
The article mentions the potential of open source algorithms and community-owned data platforms.
So instead of letting big corporations control our data, we can build our own systems that prioritize privacy and fairness.
That's the idea. These alternative models might not be as flashy or as convenient as the platforms we're used to,
Right.
but they represent a different vision for the future, one where our data is treated as a collective resource, not a commodity to be exploited.
That's a really hopeful thought. So maybe the future isn't all doom and gloom.
Yeah.
We can reclaim some of our agency and shape these technologies in a way that benefits everyone, not just a select few.
I believe we can. But it requires us to be informed, engaged, and willing to fight for a better future.
With all this talk about algorithms shaping our identities, it makes me wonder, does that little blue check mark even matter anymore?
Yeah.
Has it become irrelevant in this new landscape?
It's a great question, and the article doesn't offer a definitive answer.
Okay.
But it does suggest that the check mark might be losing some of its allure as people become more aware of the manipulative tactics behind it.
So maybe that little blue badge isn't the ultimate symbol of online validation after all.
Perhaps not. But the article points out that even if the verification check mark fades away,
Okay.
the underlying forces that created it, the desire for recognition, the pursuit of online influence, those are likely to persist.
And those desires are being harnessed by tech companies to shape our behavior and steer us toward their own goals.
Exactly. It's not just about getting rid of the check mark, it's about challenging the entire system that values those things in the first place.
Right.
And finding new ways to define success and validation that aren't based on algorithms or corporate agendas.
This has been a mind-blowing deep dive so far. We've gone from the seemingly trivial pursuit of a blue check mark to the profound questions of identity, autonomy, and the future of our digital selves. It's a lot to unpack.
It really is. And there's still so much to explore, but for now, let's pause and reflect on what we've learned about the anticipatory speculative self
Okay.
and how we can navigate this ever-evolving digital landscape.
We've been on quite a journey today exploring how this pursuit of online validation and those sneaky algorithms are shaping our sense of self.
Yeah, it's been a lot.
But I have to ask, after everything we've unpacked, what can we actually do about it? It feels so overwhelming, like this wave of data is about to crash over us, and we're just these tiny little surfers.
I think that feeling of being swept away is understandable.
Yeah.
But, this article, even though it gets pretty academic at times, actually offers some solid starting points for taking back some control.
Yeah.
The first step, as we've touched on, is awareness.
Okay, awareness.
Oh.
We got to see the matrix right. But then what? How do we actually fight back against this algorithmic identity that's being pushed on us?
I think it's about becoming conscious consumers of technology. So often we just mindlessly scroll and click and without really thinking about the data we're giving away and who's benefiting from it.
So it's like reading the fine print before you sign a contract, except the contract here is our very sense of self, our identity.
Exactly. And just like with any contract, we have the right to refuse terms we find unacceptable.
Right.
That means being more intentional about which platforms we use, what information we share, and the permissions we grant. Every click is a choice.
I like that every click is a choice. But what about those algorithms themselves? They seem to be everywhere, shaping our experiences, even when we're not on social media. How do we challenge something we can't even see?
That's where demanding transparency from tech companies comes in. We need to push them to reveal how these algorithms are being used, what data they're trained on, and what impact they're having on our lives. No more black boxes.
It's like demanding to see the wizard behind the curtain.
Right.
No more smoke and mirrors. Show us how it all works.
Precisely. And this is where collective action becomes so important. The more people who demand transparency, the harder it'll be for these companies to ignore us. We've seen it happen with other social movements, and there's no reason it can't happen here, too.
So raising our voices, supporting digital rights groups, pushing for regulations that actually protect our privacy, it all adds up. But it's not just about saying no, right? The article also talked about the need for building something better, something different.
Absolutely. It's about creating alternatives to these corporate-controlled platforms. The article pointed to open-source algorithms and community-owned data platforms as promising examples.
So instead of just being users, we can become builders and creators. Instead of letting corporations own our data, we can develop systems that are transparent and actually benefit everyone, not just a select few.
Exactly. Now, these alternative models might not be as slick or convenient as what we're used to.
Right.
But they represent a different vision of the future, a future where data is treated as a shared resource, not a weapon to be wielded for profit.
This has given me a sense of hope amidst all the complexity we've been discussing. It's okay, the challenges are huge, but there's also a growing awareness and a willingness to explore new solutions. That's powerful.
It is. And that's where the real power lies in our collective ability to imagine and create a better digital future. This article might have started with that little blue check mark, but it ultimately calls on us to completely rethink our relationship with technology, to reclaim our agency, and become active participants in shaping this digital world that's evolving all around us.
This has been like an incredible deep dive. We've gone from that seemingly trivial quest for a blue check mark to some pretty profound questions about identity freedom and the future of humanity in this digital age.
Hmm.
We've uncovered some uncomfortable truths for sure, but we've also glimpsed the potential for real and lasting change.
It has been quite a journey.
And at the end of the day, that's what we're all about here on the Deep Drive. We want to equip you, our listeners, with the knowledge and insights to navigate this complex landscape and make informed choices about your digital lives.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up, we want to leave you with this final thought. The future is not predetermined. We all have a role to play in shaping it. Let's choose to build a digital world that is equitable, just, and truly serves humanity. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.
Until next time.